Hi, and welcome all of you to our webinar about process digitalization and how we can improve our internal collaboration through launching initiatives of process digitalization across our organizations. Today, we will discuss all of these topics around the status of process digitalization in the market, the several challenges that our organizations face on this type of initiatives, and also how InnovaPrime can help you execute and implement these type of initiatives in your organization through our services and also through our solution called Governance.Business. Looking at the state of process digitalization across the different organizations, and based on a study made by BP Trends in 2020, we see different status on the different organizations. So, for example, we see organizations that are 50% of the organizations are launching initiatives around this type of challenges of process digitalization, okay, but also within those 50% of organizations, only 15 of them are really launching these initiatives on a global scale for the whole organization. For the rest of those organizations, they are just launching this type of initiatives in a certain department, small department, medium department, but basically only within the collaboration of that department. But it's nice to see that 50% of all of them are seeing that these type of initiatives are bringing value to the organization by looking at it from a global scale instead of just looking at the collaboration inside a small department. We can also see from the other standpoint in terms of the benefits that this type of organizations are collecting on this of this type of initiatives. We see that 70% of organizations that have performed this type of these initiatives, or that are performing or that are executing this type of initiatives, they say that this type of process digitalization will help them reduce costs, improve productivity. So in the end, they will see an optimization of the usage of their resources, the way that they are doing things, the way that they are performing their work, the way that they are collaborating better inside the whole organization based on having a digitalized process. Okay. And also 75% of the organizations that have answered that type of questionnaire, okay, they believe that this type of business process management initiatives will help them, okay, with the right technologies, okay, will help them achieve their goals, okay, towards the future. So essentially, it's a pretty much good state of the process digitalization market around the different organizations and around the different regions, okay? But also, one thing is understanding that, okay, these kind of initiatives will give us a lot of benefits, okay, as it is proven by this type of surveys. But also they represent also a lot of challenges that you have to overcome while executing this type of initiatives. So if we look at this type of challenges, we see that there are several challenges associated with process digitalization. So for one side, we have the problem of change management inside the organization. So how resources that today are doing manual work across different on the different processes within the organization, how they will look at passing from a manual way of doing things towards a digitalized way of doing things. So basically having their process, okay, in a digitalized system, okay, that has, of course, certain certain activities that need to be performed, have certain information that needs to be collected, okay? So how they will basically change from one manual process to that digitalized process, and how they will accept or not that change. So in the end, if the resources are not going to, aren't accepting that change from the manual way of doing things towards a digitalized world, okay, it's going to fail. These type of initiatives are going to fail inside the organizations, mainly because if nobody is using really in the end the technology and the process that we are putting in place, okay, it means that we are not going to collect the benefits from it. Okay, so we have to make sure that within the execution of this type of initiatives, we have to make sure that we have to do a proper change management, and that we will show the resources how they will gain value using the technology, using the automated process or the optimized process, okay, that is being supported by a technology. So we need to make sure that those employees will understand that perspective, okay. From another end, when we see at the plan strategy around this type of initiatives, we see that there isn't a strategy defined for digital automation, so digital transformation or digitalizing the processes inside the organizations. So essentially, normally these type of initiatives are triggered either in small departments that face the need of having a digitalized process, okay, but when looking at the C-level of the organizations, they don't see that as a very strategic initiative that we should launch, because they don't really see the benefits that they can collect from it. So that is also something that needs to be changed inside the organization, to make sure that the C-level management can or understands what these type of initiatives can do for their organization. So in terms of optimizing costs, optimizing the way that we work, getting more access to the information, to be able to do quicker decisions than we do right now. So that is something that needs really to happen in order to make sure that these type of initiatives are successful, okay. On the other side, okay, we also see that it's not just about the giving, let's say, the right attention to these initiatives, is also having the right experience to be able to plan and execute this type of initiatives. So other things that we see often in organizations is that they lack the experience internally to plan and execute this type of initiative inside the organization. So they have also to understand that they don't have, let's say, that knowledge, they don't have that experience. Maybe they need to get that experience by training the right persons that will lead those initiatives in the future, or even if they need to do that, then bring outside help in order to help them, okay, in the execution, planning and execution of this type of initiatives in the organization, making sure that then they will capture all of that experience, okay, and get that experience also in-house to make sure that they can do things towards the future, okay. So because this is also a challenge, this also represents with the second point of the strategy, okay, inside the organizations, it represents also a challenge, mainly because if I don't understand the topic, if I don't have the right experience to do things, okay, or to plan and execute this type of initiatives, then I don't see the value of those initiatives. So we also have to make sure that with that experience, the understanding of the value and the benefits that you can collect in the end are shown towards the organization, okay? The other point is really on the complex organizational structure. So sometimes we have organizations that are quite complex, several departments, several teams, several ways of working, processes that are going to have collaboration amongst the different persons and the different departments in the organization. So in the end, those types of processes are quite complex, are quite heavy, okay? When they are performed manually, they take a lot of time, okay? So those are the best processes that you can grab in order to prove the digitalization initiatives inside the organization, because if you bring one of those processes and you can digitalize that, optimize that in a solution, making sure that you can cut time, okay, in order to perform that process, that you can gain more visibility, that you can understand all the bottlenecks that you are having in that process, then it's a way for you to improve your organization and how it's collaborating and how it is performing that process. So in the end, that is also a challenge, but also an opportunity for you to use it as a proving point, okay, of this type of initiatives inside the organization, okay? Then, as the last point is also always around the budget that is available for an initiative like this. And of course, in the context that we are nowadays, okay, budget is very important. So we are not going to, organizations are not going to invest on everything. So they are going to cut on investments, okay? But the question is, should they cut on this type of initiatives? Okay, because in the end, this type of initiatives will save them cost in the future, or will get them more benefits in the future. So in the end, if you implement this type of initiatives, you are basically saving time on the way that you are performing your work. You are getting more visibility on the things that you are doing inside the organization. You are cutting costs on things that don't make sense really to happen. So in the end, you are getting more and more benefits just by investing in this type of things, okay? So looking at those challenges, the state of process digitalization in the market, how InnovaPrime can help organizations on addressing this type of initiatives. So InnovaPrime has in one end a solution, okay, that can help organizations on the digitalization of these processes, on getting all of the process digitalized in an easy way, which is something that I'm going to show today, okay, in a demo, how we can grab a process and digitalize that easily in our solution, okay? And of course, use the solution in terms of all the collaboration perspective that it provides to the different users, okay? But before having a technology in place, we also have to understand how can we build an approach, how can we execute an approach that is going to be successful and that is going to bring the organization, okay, into the right spot, okay, in terms of this type of initiatives. So we have to think, okay, how can we get an initiative ongoing in an organization, how we can address the different phases, okay, within that initiative, because it's not just grabbing the process, digitalizing the process, and that's it, okay? It has more to it, okay? So we have to understand the different phases that we can help you within your organization in order to make sure that these initiatives are successful. So this is something that InnovaPrime can also help you with, okay? So typical phases that we have in this type of initiatives are composed of 4 phases. So one of analysis and modeling. So understanding the processes that you have in your organization, modeling them, documenting them, making sure that we capture all the information that those processes are using or require. Also the responsibilities of all the activities that are performed, okay, and document all of that. Okay, based on the all of that analysis and modeling of the information, then we can start the implementation of those processes inside the technology or using the technological solution such as Governance.Business, where you can then, based on those manual processes, we can introduce automation based on that technology, making sure that we have captured the right information that needs to be used throughout the process, making sure that all the actions, all the things that we do are traceable, are auditable, to make sure that then in the end we have a good process in place, okay, in a technology solution that is easily used by any user that will collaborate in it, and also that we can monitor the process and control the process accordingly, because that's very important. The next phases of after implementation, how we can make sure that that process is being used correctly, okay, and that process possibly has several improvements that we should perform in it. So the next phase after an implementation is to make sure that we control and monitor the process, okay, in terms of the adoption of it throughout the organization, making sure that the process is used in the right way, okay, understanding also if there are some bottlenecks in that process, how we can solve those bottlenecks, how we can have potential improvements in terms of optimization of the activities or the information, or giving more visibility on certain information. So how we can basically collect all of that data to then in the later phase to optimize or introduce those optimizations across the processes. Okay, so basically based on the information that we are collecting, okay, looking again at the process, how can I improve that process to be more agile, to optimize it, to basically give more visibility, control more things, and so on and so forth. So in the end, this model is all about continuous improvement. Okay, it's all about analyzing, putting it in place, controlling it, and then addressing optimizations across the processes that we are putting in place, making sure that all of this model is continuous, so so we can have the best solution possible inside a technology. Okay. This is for one side. So the other side, of course, is focusing on the technology itself. So Innova Prime offers in the market our product called Governance.Business. Okay, so our product Governance.Business is composed of several modules and functionalities across it. So we have functionalities for reporting and dashboards, where we can offer all the visibility and analytical capabilities of analyzing your processes, your information across different domains. So we have things like document management, where you can control or you can manage all of your documents, control the permissions of who can see, who can update, and so on the documents, can version those documents, can search inside all of those documents. We also have offer a knowledge base inside our solution. Okay, and then we have other things or other functionalities that you can leverage also on your processes. So for example, the task management, so to define any task inside the solution, where you can collaborate with others, okay, to essentially define a set of tasks like you are defining in, for example, in Outlook. Oops, sorry, that you are defining in Outlook and so on. So have all of that in place. Also have full capabilities in terms of planning and executing a project, planning and executing a program with an activity plan like you have in a Microsoft project, or controlling risks, issues, scope changes, financial information from costs and benefits, all the resources that are working in there. So having all of those capabilities in place. So this is something that Innova Prime offers. And also on top of it, it offers all the best practices processes, okay, around portfolio management. So how can I manage a portfolio effectively, defining portfolios, business goals, initiatives, ideas, assets, programs, projects, and so on and so forth. So having all of those processes for each of the domains that are here in this picture, it's something that we offer from out of the box perspective, okay? But of course, you can also leverage this solution in order to digitalize any other process inside the organization, which is something that we will show you today, okay? How we can configure a process inside the solution and make it available for our users to start using it, and also then to understand all to monitor the usage of that process and to understand all the indicators, audit, and so on. So for that, we will leverage the capabilities that we have around business process management inside the solution, and that we are going to show you during the rest of the webinar. So looking at the demonstration that we will do today, so we will demonstrate how you can digitalize a process in the solution, configuring the life cycle, all the information across that process, responsibilities and the different actors that will act across the process, how we can make it available inside the organization, and how we can explore and use the collaboration features that we have inside the solution, okay, for that process in particular. So looking at the process itself, okay, we will basically digitalize a process for managing properties. So from prospecting to the acquisition of that property, and then deciding if we want to rent it, okay, if we want to sell it, okay. So basically deciding the different life cycle of that property. So we will configure actors in it, okay. So like the property manager, assigned process manager, or the property owner, okay, or then also the fields that we will use across the process, okay. So like the manager, owner, type of property, purchase price, region, and so on and so forth. So we will configure the whole process from scratch in the solution, okay, in this webinar. So looking then at our solution, so the solution is completely web-based, okay. So we will just use a web browser to do all of the configuration of the process, and then also all the usage. So there is no need for any other type of solution or plugin or so on to use and get all the capabilities of our solution. So for this, I will basically start by entering as an administrator that has all the privileges to configure a process in the solution. So for that, I will use an admin profile. Okay. And then when you enter in the solution, okay, we have here the administration part of it. Okay, that will give us all the functionality to define these processes. So the first thing that we need to do, because we have to understand that this is a clean environment. So there are, of course, the best practices processes already in here, okay? But in the end, it's something that for this new process, we don't have anything configured. So the first thing that we need to do is, because we will have the property managers, okay? We need to create that type of user group, okay? So we will start by creating that user group called property manager, okay? And we will give this group, this user group, to a certain user called Tonya Ho. So Tonya Ho is going to have this this role, and she's going to be able to enter in the system, okay, and use that process in the end. So the next thing that we need to do is define the processes. So here in the modeling section, we are able to create any process, create the workflows, also automation scripts, and many other things. So we'll focus today only on the processes and workflows. So to define a process, we have already several processes in the solution. So to define a new one, we will define a new process. We will call it property. Okay. And then we will be able to use then the several extensions that we have available that we can attach to this process, okay? Either identifying that this process is of type account or project, or then even saying that this process, okay, will have, okay, sorry, a work plan or a work team. So saying that this process will have a work plan, which we can have then capabilities of establishing a plan like you have in a Microsoft project, for example, or then having the work team that will also have all the resources that are involved with the planned estimates and the actual efforts, okay, for this process. So you can leverage several of the functionalities that I've shown before in order to enhance this process, okay, and also make sure that you can use all of that functionality, okay, to leverage other things inside the process as you want. So I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. So I'm not going to use any of that other functionality. I'm just going to define the process in a standalone perspective, okay? So I'm going to then save it. So save it is basically creating that new process in the solution. So this process is not active yet, okay, for any user. So the first thing that I will do is I will look at all the attributes that are standard, okay? So all the attributes that I have in the solution already connected to this process that I can use, okay, for configuration. So we will add some other fields here based on the fields that I've shown before in the slides. Okay. Then the other part is then we will basically, based on those fields, we will design the screens on how we want to those fields to appear to the end user throughout the different stages of the process. So we will be able to use this in a drag and drop way. Afterwards, we will define the different status that we will have on this process based on the activities that we have on the workflow, and then mention how each of those attributes will behave, okay, in terms of that status, if they are going to be visible or not visible, or then editable or required, okay. So have all of that in place. Then the other part is also the security, okay, defining who can create, who can view, who can update this process, okay. And then we will design the workflow itself with drag and drop capabilities, so the workflow that I've shown on the slides, okay. So we will start by first defining the attributes, okay. So first we will start by the manager, for example. Okay, so defining an attribute is pretty easy. The other thing that we need to define is the attribute type. The attribute type will tell us what type of component will appear to the end user. So if it's a drop-down list, if it's a drop-down list, sorry, if it's a select list, if it's a checkbox, a file attachment, a normal text box with free fields, with a free text, sorry, or any other things that we support in our solution, which are quite some things. So we can also define tables, okay, by collecting different lines of information, like you are in Excel, for example, things like that. Okay, so I will start by saying that this manager is of type users. Okay, so it will appear a list of users for me to choose. Okay. Also, I will define the owner. Which is going to be also a user. Okay, and I will define the attributes afterwards a little bit. Okay, so I will go to the security, because right now I want to set up the visibility from the end user. So I want to for us to go back and forth from the configuration standpoint and seeing how things look like from an end user perspective. Okay, so you don't get lost in all of this configuration. So we will start by setting up the security. Okay, so we will use the property manager user group that we have defined. So we will say that it has privileges to create, to always read processes of this type, and the ability to copy from from other processes to use them as templates. Okay, so that's the first thing that we will do. Then we will use also, based on the fields that we have configured, so based on who is going to be attached or who is going to be linked to the manager, filled in the manager field of the process, we will say that this person will always have read and update privileges, okay, on the process. And then the owner itself, so the other field that we have added, okay, we will say that this has always read privileges. Okay, so in the end, we have defined who has the ability to create things in the solution. Okay, so to create this type of processes. So if we start, and if we go to another browser and use that user that we have associated with the property manager group, okay, we will then, if we go to open search, okay, we will have the ability to create a property, okay, a property process, okay, in the solution, because we have already the rights to it, okay. But I don't want it to have to go to search objects and do that. I want to go through the service catalog. So I want to make sure that that property is set up on the service catalog. So the first thing that I will do as an administrator, okay, is register this type of property of process inside the service catalog. To do that, I will register another item, okay. And this item is going to be inside the corporate, for example, okay, and it's going to be called property. Let's copy that here. And then we will say that the object type that we will use is the property. We will say that if we want to associate an image with it, we could. Okay, we will say that it will appear in the third, and this is only available for the property manager. Okay, so by creating it, since we're going to create it in an enable status, okay, we are already publishing, okay, that in the catalog. So if we log out and log in, we will have the new catalog, okay, and inside the corporate, oops, we will have the property process already published. So we could, of course, associate another image based on that background image that we have here. We could upload a document, an image here, okay, and then it will look at this type of icons, okay. So we have the property here, okay, with the description that we've used. So this is the way that we want to publish to the end user. So right now I will click on it, and what I see is basically all the things as they are in the process right now. Okay, so the way that the fields appear in the screen, okay, and also the two fields that we've added, which I've said that they are of type user, so that's why they present a list of users, okay, and the same thing here on the other one. So what I will start doing is I will start adding all of the other fields that we've mentioned in the PowerPoint, okay, from an admin standpoint, okay, and then afterwards I will arrange, okay, each of each of those fields in a way that are more legible, that the user can see them, okay, throughout the process. Okay, so coming back to our admin profile, okay, and to our process property, we will then go to the attributes and start configuring all the other things, all the other information that we want to collect. Okay, so the first thing is the type. Okay, the type is going to be a list of values. Okay, so since it's going to be a list of values, I should have already done here something. Sorry about that. I'm going to open here in another tab. Okay, so adding this this field type, I want it to be a list of values saying if it's an apartment, a house, a land, a shop, a garage, things like that. So it's going to be a combo list. So that's why we are using data types. Okay, data types have different types of components. Okay, that can be tables, select lists, and other things. Okay, which are the things that we define as being the attribute types. So attribute types are in the end data types. Okay, so we will create a new data type, and in this new data type, if you see here, the type of component can be a text checkbox, combo box, date picker, date time, file edit. Okay, so several things that we can use, even markdown, okay, that we can use as fields inside the solution. Okay, so in this case, for this field, we will use a combo box. Okay, we will call it property type. The data type itself, we will say that can be a dynamic list, which in the end we have to code an SQL or so to bring it from the database, okay? Or then we can say it's a fixed list and we will basically create a list of values, okay? So in the end here, we will set up the values, okay? And then the values will be apartment, a house, land, shop, and garage. Okay, so we have a list of values here in the data type. So I see that these values aren't really ordered in an alphabetic way or in an order that I want it to be ordered. So I can then reorder the values just by drag and dropping, and then I have apartment, garage. Okay, so they are basically ordered in an alphabetic way. So by having this property type, I can go back to my attributes, okay, and associate it with our attribute called type, okay. So in this case, it's already, okay, in the form. So let's add another one called purchase price. And this purchase price is going to be a currency, okay. So the solution itself, it's completely multi-currency and also multi-language, okay. So in this case, this currency is going to depend on the currencies that are configured, okay, and then I can enter in different currencies and then use exchange rates to make sure that we present it in the right way, okay. So then we'll create this one. The other one is going to be the region, okay, and this is going to be also a list of values, okay. So inside the data type, we will create a new data type for the property called region. It's also going to be a combo box, fixed list, and then the value is going to be Lisbon, Madrid, London, Paris. Okay, so these 4 values. Okay, just save it, and then I'm going to associate it with this field. Okay, so then let's put in the rest of the fields. Okay, so the lease contract will be a file. So we'll have to attach the file in the solution, and then the lease start date will be a date, and the lease end date or finish date will be also a date. So we've finalized adding all of the attributes. So if I go here to my layout, I see that all attributes are in the general section, okay, and they are all listed here below. So in the end, if I go back to my user, Tony Aho, on the process, if I press F5, okay, I will see that all of the fields that have been configured are here. So the manager, owner, the type, which lists the types that we've added, the region with the region that we've added, purchase price that can be in euros, or then using any other currency that we want to use as the native currency for it, okay. Also sales value, lease value, tenant name, tenant VAT, the file for the lease contract, the dates for the lease start date and the lease finish date. So we have all of these fields, but of course this is not the way that we want to present them to the end user. So we want to present them to the end user organized in different ways. So that's why we are going to create different sections, put all of those attributes in the different sections, okay, and then basically make sure that we capture all the information in the right place. Okay, so we will start by adding a section called sale details. Okay, that section is going to have only it's going to be a 2-column. So we can define how many columns we would like for each section, and then making sure that we put the fields in each of those columns. Okay, so in this case, we have here the general with 3 columns. Okay, this one is 2 columns. And then I'm going to create another one called lease details with also 2 columns. Okay, so these are the things that are appearing here in the end. Okay, then I'm going to change this general one. I could change the name and so on. I'm also going to change it to a 2 column. Okay, and now I'm going to basically put all of these fields on the other places. So for example, the sales value. Okay, I'm going to move it to the sales details. And then I'm going to start the lease value. Okay, so in this case here I have all the information or all the things. I'm going to use drag and drop to put the columns as I want to. Okay, so save it. And then I'm also going to change here these columns on the general section. Okay. So by organizing the screen, if I go back to my user, I see that right now all the fields appear, okay, in the right places as I have configured them within the process, okay, in the right sections, okay, side by side, and so on. But I see that some of these fields should only appear in certain phases of the process. So right now what we want to configure is basically all of those phases. So one thing is the statuses that we are going to then use inside our process, and then we are going to afterwards design, okay, the workflow, okay, for each of those phases and associate responsibles and so on. So in this case, what we want is to associate the different statuses. So we are going to create, okay, the statuses that make sense for this process. So prospecting, the acquiring phase, the acquired, pending rent, okay, and then we will select here the closed status, okay. So by doing so, the new status represents the first status before creation. Then we have the rest of the statuses that we have inside the process. And right now we want to configure what is going to be shown in each of these phases. So in the closed phase, we don't want anything to be shown, or we don't want anything to be editable. Pending sale, okay. So we'll start by using this type of configuration. And then right now, created by, we don't want to be shown. Editable is going to be, the description is going to be editable, okay, throughout the entire process. The ID on the first phase, on the first screen, it doesn't exist, so we don't want to show it. The manager itself, we want it to be required throughout the different parts of the process. The name as well. Object type is going to be hidden. Okay, owner is going to be editable. Purchase price editable in this phase. okay, or even requiring the prospecting phase and the acquisition phase, okay, region only editable, status itself, it's only visible, not on the first one, okay, this is going to be required, then visible, and the workflow not really shown, okay, just for you to understand what I have done right now, okay, is if I go after saving, if I go to the end user, I will see that all of these fields that were appearing, only part of them are going to appear right now based on the configuration that we are doing. And then we are saying that name is required, type is required, manager is required. So all of these fields, okay, are being controlled by the configuration that we are doing. So just to accelerate a little bit the configuration, so the sales value is not going to, so what I will do is, this is visible here, visible there. So pending sale is where this is going to be required, okay? So for the rest of the process, this field has no meaning, okay? So that's why that at this phase, this has no meaning as well, okay? And sold is visible, all of this renting stuff, okay? And we will see then that it's only pending rent. So at this phase here, that has meaning all of these fields, so they won't appear to the end user the rest of the way. So then documents are going to be shown all the time. So the possibility to add documents inside the document management associated with this process, or even the message center with all the possibilities of sending emails, receiving emails, creating alerts and so on. So all of those collaborative aspects are going to be there. So I'm not going to change anything else on the process itself. Okay, so then I'm going to save it. If we look at our end user, okay, we will see that we have these cell details, list details. We will then refresh it, and then we only have the fields that are required to create the property management process, okay, as we have defined them throughout the status. So then the next thing that we will do, and the last thing that we will do in terms of configuration, is really the workflow part. So we will design a workflow for the process based, okay, on the workflow that we have shown here, okay, with all of these steps, okay. So for that, we will go here to the second tab, administration, modeling, and then workflows, and we will create a workflow, okay, to be designed. Okay, so create, then the workflow can have several versions through time, so several tweaks that we are doing. So we are going to create the initial version, okay, I'm going to just close the menu, okay, and then I have here the possibility to start designing my process. So start designing my process is to start then with drag and drop. Okay, so prospecting, then we're going to have a decision, okay, which we are going to either proceed, okay, with the process, or then we are going to close it, okay. So that's the first phase. So close. Okay, so the next one is, okay, we are going to acquire. Okay, here we are going to say it's acquiring. And then the next phase is acquired. Okay, and then we are going to make a decision. Either we are going to rent it or we are going to sell it. Okay, so pending rent. And the other one is selling, pending sale. Okay, and after we sell it, we want to close it. So to close it as sold. Okay. Okay, and in this one, we want this to represent the decision of renting, and this one to represent the decision of sell. After pending rent, we have here a status, or we have another one which is rented. Okay, and after that, we want to decide again if we want to rent it or sell it. Okay, so with this process, we are representing the whole process as we've seen it, okay, in the slides, okay, with all the decisions, everything that we want to do. Now, we need to make sure that we add all the right status associated with each of these activities, because each of the process can have several workflows that we are going to use with the process. Okay, so in the end, it's not really a one-to-one relationship between the process and the workflow itself. So that's why we need then to say, okay, this process is going to be used, this workflow is going to be used in the process, and these are the statuses and responsibles associated with each of the stages. Okay, so we will start by that. Okay, so in the end, I'm just going to grab here my notepad, just looking at things that I want to use. So this is all documented in the manual part of our solution. So the way that we are going to, let's say, connect each of the status that we have defined with the process. So we use that by connecting, by using the code for each of the statuses, okay, with a certain expression. We will use it in each of the steps. Okay, so I'm going to just copy each of these phases, of these names. Okay, so I will then associate that. Okay, so then I will grab each of these expressions in the workflow and say, okay, this step represents, okay, this expression that is going to be calculated, okay, and it's going to be representing that status. And I'm going to do that for each of the status that we are configuring. And then the last two are basically going to be associated in the decision itself. Okay, and in here I want to also close the object, the same here for this close. Okay, associated with closing the object, and also with this BP closed. Okay, and when we start the process, we want to activate it. Okay. So right now what we have done is configure the status for each of the steps to make sure that they will represent exactly the life cycle that we have defined on our process. So all of these status. So the other thing that we can do at this phase is to make sure that we can associate documentation. So what we need to do in this step. So we need to decide if we want to acquire the property. Okay, so associate also documentation in an HTML form or other formats, so you can also have that for the user. Okay, so the other things that we need to do is we have to associate responsibles on who has to do or perform the actions in each of these stages. Okay, for that, okay, each of the fields, they have a code. So I want the manager and the owner to be the ones responsible for acting on that workflow. Okay, so in this case, if I open these attributes in the advanced, I see the code, the unique code representing this field, and we also have the same for the owner. So we are going to use all of that, okay, as the actors for our workflow. Okay, so going to the workflow and then going to this main configuration, we see here the candidate users. We will use then this person as the one responsible for acting in each of these steps. And then we will use the owner to just take the decision if we want to acquire or not, okay, the property. Okay, as the last steps, we just need to associate on the decision points. If I go there or go there, okay, associate the type of action that is really performed. Okay, so for that, we also use here an expression. Taking into account either a calculation or either a static decision that we are performing. And this was the last step that I wanted to perform. To make sure that everything is done properly, we can then use the deploy, and then it will check if all the things that we have designed are valid, and if so, we can finalize the process and start using it in production mode. So we'll go then into the process itself, okay, the designing, go to the workflow, and then associate this newly created property process to this property process. And from a configuration standpoint of the whole process, it's done. So right now, it's already ready for our users to start using that process in production. So for that, I will then use from Tony row, I will start creating this process. So property XYZ. Okay, the type is an apartment. It's in Lisbon, in Madrid, sorry. The manager is going to be Tony row, so myself. Okay, and the owner, I'm going to already mentioning it as Abraham Alvarez. Okay, so once we create it, what we will see is that some fields have appeared based in the way that we have done the configuration. Some of the fields are right now required, like the purchase price. We see here these actions on top, which represents the actions that are available in the workflow that we have designed. So the workflow as we have designed it. Okay, also seeing here in the prospecting, it was the only status that we have associated the documentation with it that appears here while we highlight the process, but also when we want to take an action, it will appear here to give me the information needed to take that action if I have actions, okay, on the process. Okay, the other thing is the process is completely auditable, so I will understand who has performed what and when. Okay, we also have the auditability here to understand any changes that are made to this process so we can audit entirely, okay? And then we have other things like the message center to make sure that I can create alerts, send emails from here, receive emails from here that are going to be sent by users, okay? Also communicate and collaborate. So for example, I'm going to just say here in the message center that I'm going to be interested in any alert that is created on this process. I want to be warned, independently if I'm in the process or not, okay? This warning can come from an email, okay, or can just be highlighted when I enter in the solution, okay? So the other thing that we can use is the documents part, where we can upload any documents to the solution, can create folders, upload files, several files, see the permissions, search inside each of the files, okay, and so on and so forth. So all the documents associated with the process are maintained here inside the process, okay? But continuing with the process itself, let's define here a price that needs to be put in, okay, and let's advance to the next phase. So after filling in that information, we can take a decision of saying, okay, I want to acquire the property. And once we perform that action, we see that the prospecting phase has finished, okay, and we are right now in the acquiring phase, okay. So seeing the execution details, we will see who has done what, okay, and when, how much time it took. We also can see who are the responsibles for acting on this step just by pressing, okay, clicking on the step, and we see that this is the executors, the responsibles are is this user as we have configured, okay. So if we go back, okay, to our details, we will see then here all the details as they are put in, and we say, okay, we want to acquire, so acquiring complete. So right now it has been acquired. Okay, it has been acquired, and one of the things that we have configured is the person that needs to act on this step is different from Tony Ho. So it's the owner, the person that we have configured here on this field, okay, so that we have named. So inside the process diagram, if I click on it, I will see that it is the responsibility of Abraham Alvarez, okay. So if I press done, and if I enter as Abraham Alvarez, so I'm going to do that using the other browser, is I'm going to use one of the features that we have available, which is the possibility to impersonate another user. So I'm going to, select Abraham Alvarez. And then I have impersonated this user. So here on the left, I have all the possibilities of seeing inside my workspace, all the processes that I'm involved, okay, that need an action from me. So if I go here, my actions, I have 4 processes that I'm participating where possibly I need to take a decision, okay? So things are like business plans, or then the property that we have created, okay? So then I can look at it as in Outlook, for example, seeing it side by side, seeing all the information as it is and taking a decision, okay? Or then I can just open the entire process, okay? And then I can look at all the information that has been put by the manager, okay? And I'm going to create also an alert, okay, on the message center. So I'm going to create an alert that I want to rent the property since it's an investment. Okay, I could also add files, screenshots, and so on, whatever I wanted to this alert. Okay, so right now I've created this alert, and then I'm going to take the action of I want to rent it. Okay, so renting it, then it goes to the step of pending rent. Okay, so all of these decisions were made. The decisions are seeing here who has taken the decisions and so on, okay? And right now, from the process perspective, okay, this is on the property manager again, okay? So if we go back to the other browser, and if we press F5, we will see already a warning here, okay, saying that we have a new message, okay, in this object of type alert, okay? So if we click on it, we will go directly to this message center inside the process, where we see that we have here this alert that has been added by Abraham Alvarez. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to say, okay, so I've seen the alert. I acknowledge that, so I want to mark it as read. Okay, so right now I've read that alert. I understand what the property manager wants. So if I go here to actions, okay, I see here that I'm on pending rent. Okay, I can go to details. Okay, and then I see here the lease details. Okay, that we have added or that are required on this phase. So in this case, I'm going to say the rent value is €1,000, for example. I'm going to add a lease contract. Okay, so a file. I'm going to say this file over here. The tenant name is going to be Marco Batista. The rent is going to be from the 1st of May until the 31st of December, and the VAT certain number. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to save it, and I'm then going to complete. Okay, and take the action, as right now the property is in the status of rented. Okay, sorry. Okay, so we have basically in the rented status where we can then take again the decision of renting or selling, okay, based on the actions that are available. So let's say if I wanted right now to search this process because I had other, many processes and so on, I could use the capabilities of searching based on this search that we have over here, okay, saying that, okay, I want to search for properties, okay, so I have here then the list of properties. I could also collect and say, okay, I want this information, but also with the lease value, with the start date, finish date, with the owner of the property and the region, okay? And then I'm selecting all the fields that I'm going to, that I want to see, okay? And then I can extract that to Excel. I can also save this search for later purposes, okay? I can also use the dashboards to analyze the processes in an analytical way, graphical perspectives, and so on. So there are several other things that I'm not showing in this webinar, okay, that are meaningful in order to collaborate inside the solution. So what I wanted to show is exactly how you could leverage our solution to design easily a process and publish that to the organization, to the users, so they can start using it, and then how I can analyze that usage and see the different things that are happening inside the organization based on that usage. So this is basically the webinar as I wanted to show you. So thank you very much for attending. If you have any questions whatsoever, okay, just put on the comments, okay, on the chat box or on the comments, any suggestion, any comment, any question that you might have, or feel free to drop me a line, okay, on my email. So my email is basically marco.batista@innovaprime.com. So drop me an email, ask anything that you might want to see. Also, if you want a personalized demo for you, just we are available for that. Feel free, okay, to connect to us so we can see how we can help your organization. Okay, so thank you very much for attending the webinar, and I hope to see you next time.